Welcome to the deep dive. You're aiming to get smart, fast, on compelling subjects without, getting lost in the weeds.
That's the goal.
Consider this your express lane to understanding. Today, we're zeroing in on one specific year, 1982, in the life and artistic mind of Bob Camblin.
Yeah, and we've got some great source material to work with: exhibition docs, reviews, and best of all, a bunch of his own writings, his musings.
Exactly. So our mission today, figure out what was significant for Camblin in 82, what was his art about then, what can we learn about his whole philosophy?
Right, we've got the facts, the shows, the reception, and then the more personal, philosophical stuff from Camblin himself. Should be interesting to see how they mesh.
Okay, let's start with the timeline. His exhibition activity in 1982, he seems, well, pretty visible that year.
He really was.
Yeah.
The records show him based down in Galveston for a good chunk of the year, like February through November.
Uh-huh.
And yeah, definitely exhibiting. We've got documentation for, I think, 5 different exhibitions he was part of.
5 shows. That's certainly keeping busy. Let's look at the first one, Hearts and Flowers down in Waco in April. The context there seems pretty impressive.
It really does. It was tied into the Waco Art Center's 10th anniversary, a big deal for them.
Okay.
And the list of other artists in that show, I mean, Mark Chagall, David Hockney, Andy Warhol.
Wow. Yeah, that's not exactly small potatoes. Being shown alongside them, that says something.
Absolutely. It suggests his work was really being seen as part of that contemporary conversation.
Yeah.
Alongside, major international figures.
Right. Then, come June, his work travels even further afield to Norway.
That's right. An exhibition called Art from Houston in Norway, 1982, over in Stavanger. It was part of a sister city festival.
Ah, okay.
And significantly, this is his first time showing in Europe, a real milestone. He showed a piece called King's X, a watercolor from '75.
A watercolor, interesting. Smaller scale, perhaps.
Yeah, watercolor on paper, 23 by 29 inches, courtesy of Moody Gallery back in Houston.
And David Brower's introduction for that show aimed to present the best, most representative selection of contemporary art in Houston. So Camblin's firmly in that group.
Clearly seen as a key figure in the Houston scene at that point.
Okay, now this contemporary landscapes exhibition, this one seems like a major focus. It had 2 runs.
Exactly. First at the Art Museum of South Texas in Corpus Christi. That was September, October.
Uh-huh.
And then it traveled to the Nave Museum in Victoria in November.
And he had 3 pieces in this one. Oils.
Yes, 3 oils on canvas, 507 Basecamp Studio, and Joe's Backyard, both from '81, and then Houston, Texas from '82 itself. Quite substantial pieces, too, judging by the dimensions.
And here's where we get that intriguing comment from Jim Edwards, suggesting Camblin might be the devil's advocate in the show, kind of questioning what landscape painting even is.
Yeah, that's a fascinating angle. It implies he wasn't just painting pretty scenes. He was maybe pushing back against tradition.
Does that track with the specific works, Joe's Backyard and 507 Bascom?
Well, the descriptions hint at that. They were painted out in San Jose, California, at the place of his friend Joe Tate, another painter.
Okay.
And they're described as having lush color and paint application, but also depicting a kind of wildness in these yards. So not idealized nature, more like vivid, maybe slightly chaotic reality.
More energetic, perhaps, than traditional landscape.
Could be. And it moves beyond just representation.
Right, because there were other elements, too. Didn't he write titles on the paintings and there was a postcard involved?
Exactly. He wrote the titles right across the bottom. And on 507 Bascom, there's apparently a collage element, a postcard that he painted over.
Huh. So he's layering things, adding text, adding found objects, messing with the surface. That definitely sounds like challenging convention.
It does. And then there's a collaborative aspect with Joe Tate.
Oh, yeah. Tell me about that.
The notes mention this almost imagined scenario, Camblin handing Tate a loaded brush and saying, add something.
Seriously, like letting someone else paint on his canvas?
That's the suggestion, a real openness to chance, to collaboration.
Yeah.
Kind of makes you think about some of his later quotes, maybe about letting go of control.
Yeah, that step off the train of thought idea we'll get to. Interesting connection.
Definitely.
Okay, so besides these landscapes, what else was happening exhibition-wise in '82? There was a print show.
Yep, a print show mentioned in the Houston Chronicle in October. Patricia Johnson wrote about it.
Okay.
And his work was also included in another show at the Nave Museum in November, this one called Contemporary Landscapes, 10 American Artists. So the landscape theme was definitely prominent.
Right. And the Amarillo Art Center acquired some of his work that year, too.
Correct. So recognition from institutions as well. And the Texas Art Review noted his tendency to work in series, often linked to his travels. Ireland comes up.
Uh-huh.
And it mentions his very personal visual language across different media drawing, watercolor, oil. So a cohesive praxis, even with all this activity.
Okay, so that paints a picture of a very publicly engaged artist in 1982. Lots of shows, different contexts, travel,
For
recognition.
sure.
Now, let's shift gears a bit and look at the other side, his own words, his reflections from around this time or that feel relevant. How do these thoughts illuminate that busy year?
Well, it's interesting. You see all this activity, and then you read something like, fortunately, some things remain forever, or another 10 years, perhaps.
Uh-huh. Yeah. There's a bit of a wry, maybe slightly melancholic edge there, isn't there, given how much he was doing?
Right. It's like he's aware of the effort, the creation, but also the impermanence of it all.
Yeah.
Legacy versus the moment.
He also digs into perception, doesn't he? This idea of looking into the atom or into magic to get what you need.
Yes. Look into the atom, you get what you need. Look into magic, and you get what you need. Philosophy and art are in both.
It's fascinating how he puts science and magic, or maybe intuition, on the same level.
Like different paths to the same understanding, perhaps. Or maybe just acknowledging that both rational inquiry and, let's say, non-rational insight are valid ways of knowing. And then he mentions the sixth sense.
The sixth sense is to be, without a doubt, senza dubio. No doubt. Trusting that gut feeling, basically.
Deeply trusting it, it sounds like. No hesitation.
And yet he also aims for balance. I love this line. I will stick with common sense and try for the perfectly average view of the universe.
It sounds contradictory at first, doesn't it?
It does.
But he clarifies. I think that will let me enjoy miracles on both sides of science and magic.
So average isn't mediocre. It's like a central point.
A vantage point to see everything from, the smear between the whiteness and the blackness, as he puts it.
Exactly. He wants you to appreciate the whole spectrum, not just the extremes. And he hopes for this intensely bright gray where they meet. It's a really nuanced idea.
It is. And then there's the connection to nature. Find something in nature that completes you and then surrender.
That suggests a kind of humility, doesn't it? Letting go, finding your place within something bigger. Yeah. And paired with that honesty, I cannot tell a lie to myself for very long. Okay, that's dated 74, but it feels like a core part of his character.
I agree. That authenticity seems crucial. It probably informs the art, too.
Speaking of the art, his definition is interesting. Art is not just images. Art for art's sake has become art for life's sake, or art for my sake, or art for survival's sake.
That really grounds it. It's
Yeah.
not some lofty, detached thing. It's essential. It's tied to living, to coping, maybe even to, well, surviving.
Vital. Yeah,
Mhm.
vital. And this line really resonates with me. Step off the train of thought to find the power that is no power. To do the work that is not work. To laugh the true laugh. Bending is not bowing.
It's almost like a Zen koan or something. A call to get outside of your usual mental ruts.
Find a different kind of power, a different way of working, not forcing it.
Maybe. And that distinction between bending and bowing, flexibility versus submission. Yielding, maybe,
Yeah.
but not giving up your integrity. It ties back to that idea of surrender, perhaps.
He also seems like a keen observer of people, these little anecdotes, like the person hearing about changing the world and then just paying for coffee.
Uh-huh. Yeah. It's that gap between big ideas and, well, daily life. He sees the irony, the humanness of it all, and his note about how people react differently to pessimists and optimists.
Right, paying more attention to the pessimist's warnings.
Yeah.
Sharp observation.
Definitely.
Then you get these moments of almost pure poetry, connecting himself to the cosmos through leaves and sunlight.
The cosmos waves as me with tree leaves, sun-heated air moves across the electrons of my skin. It's incredibly sensory, feeling that connection physically.
Yeah, very embodied, not just an intellectual idea.
And then there's this vulnerability about his own process. Drawing on a frosted window, seeing truth in others' work, but struggling to find it freely in his own.
Mine seems always to be close, but never yet stands completely free of me, except so very few pieces, and their freedom frightens me.
That's incredibly honest. It really is.
Yeah.
It shows that even for an established exhibiting artist, that search, that struggle is real. And maybe success, when it truly feels independent, is even a bit scary.
He connects this searching to zazen as well, right? Linking that meditative practice to drawing.
Yes, that idea of mindfulness, of being present in the act. And his emphasis, process and awareness of it, cannot be failure.
Ah, so the value is in the doing, in the awareness, not just the outcome.
Exactly. It's not about whether the drawing is good or bad in the end, maybe, but about the state of mind during his creation. being fully there.
That really shifts the focus.
It does, and it connects to his thoughts on belief versus knowing, the limits of just logic. He seems to value intuition and direct experience very highly.
He also seems aware of the art world itself, the consumer art environment, that tension between making something unique and the demand for constant novelty.
Yeah, he's definitely grappling with the artist's place in that system. How do you stay true to your vision when there's pressure for the new thing? It's a question artists still ask today, for sure.
No kidding. And just to include this gem, his summary of starting teaching back in 69-70. The first year, I assumed. The second year, I capitulated. The third year, I'm teaching.
It's brilliant. So concise, so relatable for anyone who's ever tried to teach anything. Shows that self-awareness again.
And we'll end the quotes with this incredibly vivid, slightly strange image. The ego.
Oh, yeah. Your ego hidden and following you as gracefully as a goldfish's shit folded under the waving tail. How neat that thought is.
It's blunt, but memorable. The ego is always there, trailing behind, maybe unnoticed sometimes.
But definitely present. It's a striking, kind of funny, kind of profound image to ponder. Self-awareness without self-importance, maybe?
Could be. So, pulling it all together, 1982 for Camblin looks like this whirlwind of external activity shows, travel, recognition, but underpinned by this really deep, continuous internal dialogue.
Absolutely. The exhibitions show the artist engaging with the world, testing ideas, collaborating. The writings show him processing it all, asking fundamental questions about art, perception, existence.
His own words really do provide that crucial context, don't they? You see the work, but then you hear the thinking behind it, or alongside it.
Definitely enriches the understanding. He wasn't just making stuff. He was thinking, feeling, questioning intensely.
So, for listeners, considering all this, the busy exhibition schedule, the collaborations, the travels, and then these really introspective, sometimes challenging quotes, what do you think was really driving Bob Camblin in 1982? What was the engine behind all that creative energy?
Yeah, and maybe think about how that dynamic, the outward engagement and the inward reflection, plays out more broadly in artistic creation. How do artists balance showing their work with figuring out what it all means?
That interplay between the studio and the world, the hand and the mind, definitely something to mull over.